area uh, that would be helpful, but built on some of the things you're doing in the MSP plans, but other things as well. So, all of that being put on a local municipality to come up and reinvent the wheel all the time and come up with a budget. It's another heavy lift for the communities. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any questions in the chat? Okay. And as a reminder, you can email me any questions that you may have or comments. So if you need to think about it a little bit further, that's fine too. Going to move on to the next slide. So we have expanding collection efforts for low hazard, high volume hazardous waste for local and regional government. So row 15, we have collect mercury thermostats. For row 16, we have collect rechargeable batteries. For row 17, we have collect TVs, computers, and other electronics. So I think we've heard from a few of these already, but if anyone has any further questions or comments that they'd like to share, we'll just give that a minute. And Marge, if you could unmute yourself, let us know if there's any questions in the chat.
We currently don't have any questions, but we do have a couple comments. Phil says statewide marketing education plan, and then row 12, expand oil-based paint collection, bottom paint.
Thank you. Jan, let's hear it.
Okay, I'm having a lot of fun. I keep hitting clapping hands and thumbs raised. So if you see those going, it's really my effort to raise my hand. I just wanted to point out, I mean, it's great to call to recycle for batteries, rechargeable batteries, and they were until fairly recently, within the last year, kind of the go-to company because they were free. They're no longer free. And when we did a price comparison for batteries, for rechargeable batteries and button batteries, all of it, the FAC 110, which will have a new name soon, those contractors were much more affordable per pound than when you calculate call to recycle. So I know some people still using call to recycle, and that's great. It's a good program. It works. But I guess my comment would be, can we expand that note section to include the vendors, the current vendors on FAC 110, and then the future vendors on WMR 001.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time, questions? Greg, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, just I think that's kind of covered, Jan. This was identifying the private collection kind of opportunities. We know as the FACs, is a good outlet. Earlier on in the thing, we talked about expanding collections, which municipalities may collect, batteries, and put those through the FAC contract. But we still want to kind of, for those cases where someone wants to just mail it back, or, doesn't live in a town which offers that kind of service at this particular point in time, continue to promote that there are ways to kind of get rid of these batteries in a safe way, and we should continue to kind of promote that. And hopefully, we'll be making some progress on this, and they'll be getting a little bit more proactive call to recycle as the issue of managing these batteries becomes more identified as a serious problem.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments in the chat? Okay. I'm forward.
There's a
So
question
again,
about computers.
oh, okay. Marge, can you please read the question about computers in the chat? Thank you.
If Miriam could raise their hand, I can unmute them. They can ask it.
Um, okay. I'm gonna keep going. I don't see them on the chat, on the unmuting themselves. So if you'd like to write an email, we can discuss this further. And again, my email address is in the chat. Okay. Moving forward, we have expand collection efforts for low hazardous, high volume for local regional government. So we have row 18, collect household rolls off the tongue. Collect household batteries, lithium and nickel cadmium. Row 19, collect mercury containing products. Row 20, consider supporting / expanding legislation such as EPR, extended producer responsibility, and expand waste categories. So if anybody has any questions or comments about those 3 rows.
We have a comment in the chat that says Staples and Home Depot also take back batteries and some electronics. We also have one that says, in terms of the bottom paint comment, bottom paint has a lot of copper and zinc, which are used as biocides / anti-fouling agents and are very expensive to dispose of because they're effectively pesticides. I used to work at a marina and it's a huge problem. We also have one that says row 20, same comment about support as before.
Thank you.
And Marissa Perez, did you read her chat? I think she said recycling of latex paint is very expensive. I've heard in webinars it has cost Mooney's many thousands of dollars to have recolor collected. Not feasible for us to offer this service at that cost. And David Nightingale said latex is kind of a loss leader, but perhaps more importantly brings other more toxic household hazardous waste. And latex is very recyclable. With EPR, recycling cost is taken away from local programs.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So we have low hazardous and high volume waste for local and regional government. We have row 21, maintain sustainable materials recovery program, SMRP, municipal application. Row 22, continue MassDEP funded universal waste shed grants. Row 23, maintain universal waste shed grants funded by municipal waste combustors. Row 24, identify data gaps in coverage, geographic, seasonal materials, demographic. Any questions in the chat for that one? Or these 4?
On row 24, we have the same general comment about developing a master plan with input from uni. Row 21 is absolutely crucial to incentivizing and engaging municipalities in providing these services.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna keep moving along. I don't see anyone's hands raised. So again, low hazard, high volume waste at local and regional government.
Oh,
David
Row-
Nightingale, raised hand. Okay.
David
Oh.
Nightingale is.
Let's hear it, David.
Yeah, thank you. The effectiveness of the programs, I sort of swallowed hard at the beginning when you're talking about the 50% served. I think it seemed to me what you're talking about was you had programs in jurisdictions that had that many people. So if there's 100,000 households in that jurisdiction, and you had a program there, you said those servers were served. More typically, people look at how many actual households show up during a year, as opposed to taking and saying that whole jurisdiction. And um, in the early days of the paint EPR program that I was involved with Scott Cassell and other people, we came up with a fact that there's a periodicity of how often people show up to bring household hazardous waste is about 7.4 years. And so if you want to serve your whole jurisdiction, you need to think about serving everybody every 7.4 years. And so that means if you want to, on average, cover everybody, you need to be serving about 13 or 14% of each household, all households in that jurisdiction. And then that's a more effective way. So you just take, the number of um, uh, households that show up in that jurisdiction, multiply by 7.4, because that's a periodicity, and then that would be your effectiveness, as opposed to saying that whole jurisdiction is being served. So I think doing it there's other ways to do it, but right now having and saying you're serving that many households, I think is a little bit misleading.
Thank you, David. Yeah, and you're referencing table 1 where we had those percentages. And I will say the households and populations served, that just means that they potentially have a nearby option. It doesn't mean that they were actively participating. So
Yeah. It was
that's good.
available. It was available to them, which
Yeah.
is fine. Yeah. And so, for me, 100% of the households are served in Washington State because every county has a program and that covers the whole state, which really isn't meaningful.
Okay. Yeah. But thank you for that input. Do we have any chat questions, comments?
We had a couple comments on row 24. Someone asked gaps in the data or gaps in coverage or both. To which John responded to, the focus of this point is to address gaps in coverage and access, but could consider data gaps and needs as well. And then another question on row 24 is what land and or buildings can the state provide? Check with DCAMM. And then just going off of Dave's point, we have one more comment. Dave's point about 13% of HA's household hazardous waste a year, that would be absolutely cost prohibitive for munis. Currently, less than 2% of HH actually show up at most muni events.
Okay, yeah, definitely going to get more data there. Anne?
Yeah, I just want to, Claire makes a good point, and I was thinking about it when Dave was talking about, you know, actual households served versus who has access, right? One is like people have access, 50% have access, but maybe only 50 people use it. But Claire's point, I might really want to put a big star on that because we struggle with this. It's a conundrum, right? We want, as municipalities, we want more hazardous waste, but the more effective we are, the more costly it is. And so, towns set their budget in July. Our collection is in September. Fortunately, they have RDP money they can use, but we've had situations where, we did exceptional advertising and had a huge turnout. And so it's this very uncomfortable conundrum of the environmentalist part of me being like, yay, we got more stuff out of households. And the, budget side of me going like, oh my God, how are towns going to pay for this? So I just, how much money does MassDEP have to support this, or how many more RDP points can towns get to put toward this? So it's not on any of these tables, but I think that's Claire just brings up a reality for many of us. This real challenge of wanting more waste, and maybe the model is, maybe Tessa can give examples at the next meeting about the economics of a permanent collection or some of the other permanent collection programs. But from a 1 day perspective, the more people we come through, it becomes whoppingly expensive.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it up. Definitely something we want to address. Okay.
We have a comment from Phil that says there may need to be a statewide funding approach.
Any other comments? I don't see anyone's hand raised. Okay.
Another comment from Phil Goddard that said model facility in Boulder, Colorado. He referred to that. Thank you.
Yep, we can look into that.
Yep.
Okay. So row 25, broaden/publicize statewide contracts for collection, equipment, management of EPPs, HHP, OSD contract FAC 110. And again, this is low hazard, high volume for local regional government. Not seeing any comments. Not seeing any hands raised. We're going to keep it moving. So this is low hazard, high volume for local regional government again. We have row 26, promote disaster preparedness. Row 27, reduce, reuse, repair micro grants. Row 28, promote alternatives to HHPs. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Are we seeing anything in the chat?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we're moving on to a different section. So we'll be discussing the outreach education. So educating the public on how to reduce the use of HHPs and promote alternate options. So that's one way to preventatively reduce the amount of waste that's generated at the household hazardous waste collections.
There's a comment from Irene Congdon who said she would like number 28 to move to 1.
Okay, so basically just prioritizing that. Okay. Thank you. We've got row 29, update and publicize MassDEP website, enhance website to make more user-friendly. Row 30, promote MassDEP Recycle Smart. Row 31, promote recycling works in Massachusetts. Row 32, incorporate mercury and other HHP collection location maps into MassDEP's Beyond the Bin. And I will say, I think row 29 will also incorporate additional translations if possible. I don't see any hand raised. Do we see anything, Marge, in the chat?
Nope.
Okay. And again, all these tables are on the action plan draft. So if you have any afterthoughts, you can email those to me. So continuing with outreach education. So we have row 33, share information. Row 34, promote point of contact at DEP to help address questions and concerns. Row 35, help expand the role of municipalities in their residents.
Yeah, Phil Goddard had raised his hand.
Okay, I'm just going to read the last couple rows and then we'll get to you, Phil. So row 35, help expand the role of municipalities in their resident/business education and outreach. Row 36, promote source reduction strategies, including reduce, reuse, recycle. Phil, what do you?
Thank you for indulging me. So number 33, rather than a separate subcommittee, I think we have several. So this is very helpful, this discussion. This is kind of what we wanted to see. So when you say participate in SWAC subcommittee meetings to share updates on HA, I think this group from DEP with John's and Greg's other hat with solid waste, have this as a regular agenda item on the SWAC, maybe every 6 months. We need to know what the outcome of this plan is going to be, how you're going to implement it. A lot of the comments and suggestions here, we need to hear back from the DEP on what you're going to do, how we can help you. And again, bringing together all of the folks that are on this call on a regular basis so we understand what others are planning to do. For example, we may not know that they're planning a regional facility, permanent facility up in the north. I think it was Lowell or Lawrence. What are they doing? We just don't know. So the more we understand what others are doing, and that it's a regular agenda item at some level, I think is going to be very helpful. The concern with these types of efforts is they become a plan, and the plan is put somewhere on a website, and then we never hear about it again. And then we're faced with the next season of planning. And I'll be also sensitive to the budget issues that Jan and Claire have mentioned, that budgeting these events and planning them are usually 6 months to a year in advance, with contracts that may not be ready. Budget cycles for the municipalities are set. So really understanding the cycles of the municipal budget issues would be very helpful. Thank you for listening.
No, thank you for your input.
We have some comments and questions in the chat. We have one that's re-consumer ed. It's really hard to effectively educate the public. Not sure how you measure, but in my 30 years of experience, I've concluded that the only way to effectively reduce bad consumption is to provide cost signals that include the actual cost of proper disposal, or to raise the bar for the ability of consumers to acquire hazardous products. We also have a question that says, what do you mean by point of contact at DEP?
I think providing email addresses, phone numbers, that nature, like specifically getting to a person and clarifying who to reach out for which.
And then we have one that says personal contact is the most effective, as shown by MassDEP's funded study a few years ago. Expensive, yes, but very effective. I spend a lot of time on the phone helping answer resident questions.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Marge, are we good with chats?
We have one comment based off of the personal contact item that I just read. It says, I also spend a lot of time on the phone helping answer resident questions, but I might speak to 300 people a year where there are 400K residents in the region.
Yeah, I think that goes kind of hand in hand with letting people know who they can reach out to. And also there's different organizations that can answer the questions too. So making sure that residents are getting information from reputable sources. But that's really good to hear. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next slide. Oh, wait, that's it. We did it.
So what I can suggest is that, we've captured all these comments in the chat and also some of the comments verbally. So those will be transcribed. We'll be going through those over the next couple of weeks in anticipation of our next meeting in April. We'll update some of the information on these slides. But feel free to go through this again. Feel free to go through the Word document, the plan that we have. And that you could go through. Those tables that you saw right here are also reproduced in the plan. And just make sure that, provide us the information. If you have additional comments or questions, feel free to send those to us. Take this opportunity to provide us more information, and then we can actually revise this and expand on it. And look at some of the suggestions that you provided, which are great. And we can talk about those a little bit more on our April meeting.
I would just like to say as well that the HHP action plan draft was emailed as an attachment for the invite. So please reach out to me directly. Send me an email if you need that copy sent to you. Again, it looks like it is in the chat, but I just want to make sure that everybody has the option to access that. Bill, I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you for one last comment. I put in the chat, but I'm not sure it was part of one of the comments, but there are only a few permanent commercial facilities we refer people to in the off season. Like there's a Clean Harbors facility in Braintree, and then there's one in what I would call Western Mass, but I know Jan, it's Midwest from the Cape perspective, out in mid state. And tell someone, hey, I've got a jar of mercury or something grandma, passed. We're cleaning out the house. We got a bunch of hazardous waste. Yeah, go to Braintree on a Saturday from Hyannis, So my suggestion to you is reach out to the Clean Harbors, reach out to that commercial entity. It's one company that has two other facilities. Also speak to all the haulers. I would seriously, I know that there are discussions, there are haulers that offer at-door concierge service for hazardous products that are, in other states that are looking at maybe coming into the state to do it here, which again, we need everybody doing everything we possibly can. So I think you need to reach out to the commercial entities to see what they're willing to do, and maybe a business model for them to expand and create their own centers, and have it open all year long and charge, and they're available to anybody who wants to drive up on a Saturday, and but they may need help with permitting, so they're not considered a TSDF, all these type of things. But I think we're missing them from the discussion. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Jan, I see you have your hand raised as well.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank you for putting this together. I know it wasn't something you did overnight. Took some thought, and really appreciate starting the conversation, as Claire said in the chat. There, as you can tell, there are a handful of us who have a lot to say, because we've been doing this for a long time, and there are people who are just starting out who also have really good input and feedback. So I look forward to continuing the conversation and really, continuing to improve this, because we know we need to do something, right? We're not completely succeeding on this aspect of waste management. And so having a dialogue started is a really good first step. So thank you for pulling it together.
Thank you.
And Phil, to your comment about the upcoming 2 meetings, we will be sending out the meeting invites shortly. So people can get those on their calendars for the April and May meeting.
Okay.
So like I said, send in your comments, email, Caitlin put in her contact info at the beginning of the presentation, and reach out to us, any one of us. we'll definitely want to make sure that, you know, we get your comments and we can address them.
Okay,
I had one last one I just forgot that EEA has so many agencies underneath it, you know, coastal zone management, fish and wildlife, DCR, we all know the story, right? So DEP is just one slice of that. But all those other agencies all have a common stake in what we're doing here, and they have methods of communication to their constituents. So certainly cross promotion within, you know, you're out hunting. I know there's restrictions on lead shot, for example, getting into estuaries, maybe I'm wrong or not. I don't know. But you know, they're out there hunting in the woods and they see a bunch of illegal dumping. You know, messages from all the agencies that have a stake in the environment from the EEA cabinet level down, cross promoting, all linking to the same information, same cross promotion. You're going to hit different audiences and constituents that may not be going to DEP, but they hear about it through their fish and wildlife permitting process or something like that. So I just thought of that. I mean, we talked about that when we, and I also refer this group to the PowerPoint that several of us did. Juanita, Claire, Calliope from the Cape who retired. That's on the website from the SWAC meeting in June, which reiterates a lot of this. So I just by default incorporate that into this discussion. So, but I think there's a lot of other messaging that other state agencies have money for. Maybe you could pull your resources together in a statewide campaign. So maybe that would be something you could do. Thank you.
thanks, Bill. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more hands raised, and I don't see any. Oh wait, Don just wrote in the chat. Got the solid